It was supposed to be a simple mission, one that would secure the alien race's dominance over Earth. For months, the Zyrex had studied humanity, observing their every move from afar. They had learned everything about Earth. Its cities, its customs, its politics. They knew humans were fragile, divided, and weak. But they also knew one thing that had been central to their plan: the humans' innate sense of pride and self-preservation. The Zyrex had only one goal: to break their spirit and take control of the planet. Lieutenant Zorashah was among the Zyrex elite, trained in the art of infiltration, diplomacy, and, when necessary, destruction. This particular mission was supposed to be a turning point. She had been sent to Earth to eliminate a small group of human soldiers who had been causing disruptions near a high-security facility. The plan was simple: make an example of them and scare the rest of humanity into submission. She landed in the dead of night, her stealth ship barely making a sound as it touched down in the forest surrounding a remote military base. Zorashah was confident. Her people had superior technology, unmatched intellect, and a deep understanding of their enemies. She had encountered many humans before, always swiftly dispatching them when necessary. They were predictable, easy to manipulate. This time, though, she felt a twinge of unease, though she dismissed it quickly. There was no reason for doubt. As Zorashah moved through the dense underbrush, her camouflage blending seamlessly with the environment, she approached the soldier's position. There were 5 humans, all dressed in the standard fatigues, carrying weapons that to her seemed comically outdated. She had expected them to be far more dangerous. But this group was unprepared, unaware of the true scale of the war they were about to face. Zorashah had only one objective: eliminate them. But the humans weren't helpless. The moment she stepped into their territory, she felt the heat of their rifles trained on her, their eyes sharp with suspicion. Without warning, she was captured. Zorashah wasn't sure how it happened. One moment, she was silently moving through the shadows, and the next, a sharp sting seared her arm as a net of some kind wrapped around her body. It was a trap, one that humans had set up specifically for her. She had underestimated them. A rare mistake. Still, Zorashah felt no fear. She could escape at any moment. She had the power to break free and take down every last one of them. But the humans weren't moving. They stood back, watching her struggle against the net, as if they were waiting for something. And then, through the shadows, one of them approached. He was tall, with sharp features and a face hardened by battle. His eyes were unwavering as they met hers, filled with a cold determination that made Zorashah pause. This was no ordinary soldier. He was different. Somehow, not like the others who had feared her or attacked first. He simply stood there, watching her. No anger, no fear, just silence. Zorashah hissed through clenched teeth. "What do you want, human? You are wasting your time. I'll escape, and when I do, you'll regret it." The man didn't respond at first. Instead, he knelt beside her, his eyes not leaving hers. Zorashah's instinct screamed at her to act, to lash out, but she held herself still, curious about this unusual behavior. He reached out, and for a moment, she thought he was going to finish what she assumed would be her demise. But instead, he cut the net with precision that surprised her. His movements were calm, practiced, almost respectful. "You're not what I expected," the man said quietly, his voice low but firm. "I expected a monster, an alien to destroy everything in sight. Instead, I find you here, trapped. Why?" Zorashah blinked, her mind racing. What was he saying? Why wasn't he killing her? Humans were supposed to act out of fear, to destroy anything that threatened them. But this one wasn't acting out of instinct. "You should kill me." Zorashah spat, feeling the sting of confusion and anger rising in her chest. "That is what your kind does. You kill anything different from you. Why are you showing mercy to me?" The man stood up, dusting off his pants, and stepped back a little. "Mercy? No, I don't believe in mercy." He looked down at her, eyes darkened with a quiet intensity. "But I do believe in understanding. And right now you're my prisoner. I'm not going to kill you, but that doesn't mean you're safe." Zorashah's mind raced. She had been in countless confrontations, but this one was different. She expected to die. It was the only logical outcome. But this human, He was offering her something entirely unexpected. And in that moment, something shifted within her. A feeling she couldn't quite name, a feeling of both frustration and, strangely, curiosity. What was he planning? What did he see in her? For the first time, Zorasha found herself unsure of how to proceed. Zorasha tried to steady her breathing, forcing her mind to focus, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. She had never been in a position like this before. Captured by a human, yet not treated like an enemy. She couldn't understand it. Humans, from everything she had seen, were ruthless. They had been at war with each other for centuries, conquering, destroying, always driven by fear and hatred. Yet this soldier, was acting so differently. The man stepped back, keeping a safe distance, as though he knew the potential danger of having an alien so close. He didn't trust her, but he wasn't afraid either. There was something almost calm in the way he held himself. It was as if he wasn't seeing a monster, but a person. An enemy, yes, but a person nonetheless. Zorasha had expected to be executed or interrogated. Instead, she found herself caught in a strange, silent standoff, locked in a battle of wills she hadn't anticipated. "You got a name?" The man's voice cut through the silence, and Zorasha looked up sharply. For a moment, she was too stunned to answer. The question seemed so absurd to her. She was a lieutenant of the Zyrex, a warrior in a conquering force. Why would this human want to know her name? "Why?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You don't need to know my name. I'm your enemy." He tilted his head, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "You're not my enemy. Not yet. I'm just trying to understand what's going on here." Zorasha's mind was a whirlwind. She had been trained to understand her enemies, to read their movements and predict their next steps. But this human was throwing her off balance. She expected to feel hatred, to feel disgust for the species that would soon kneel before the Zyrex. Instead, she felt something else. Something she didn't want to admit. Was it pity? No. She refused to accept that. But there was definitely something in the way this human treated her that made her question everything she knew. "You expect me to speak to you?" Zorasha said, still trying to keep her voice firm, though her heart was pounding. "You're making a mistake. I will break free. Your people will fall." The man raised an eyebrow, his gaze unflinching. "I don't expect you to speak. I just want to know who you are before this whole thing gets ugly." Zorasha narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" "Well, you're not the first alien I come across, and you sure won't be the last. But you're different from the ones I've seen before. The others came in, guns blazing, ready to kill. But you're not like that, are you?" Zorasha stiffened, her pride taking over. "I came here to do my job, nothing more. I'm not your ally, human." He held up his hands, palms outward, as though trying to show he meant no harm. "I never said you were. I just think you're more complicated than that." She was still processing his words when another soldier, one of the companions, walked up. "Captain, what's going on here?" The new man looked at Zorasha, then at his captain. His tone was tinged with confusion. "You're not going to just let her go, are you?" The captain, the man who had captured her, didn't flinch, his gaze never leaving Zorasha. "I'm not letting her go. I'm trying to understand her." Zorasha felt a flicker of something she had never experienced before. Was it respect? She had fought wars across galaxies, torn apart civilizations, but never had an enemy taken this much interest in her. "You understand nothing about me," she said, her voice harsh. "I'm not like you. I will never be like you. I am here to conquer, to destroy." The captain's gaze softened, though his expression remained serious. "Maybe not, but I think you've been taught to believe that's your only purpose. Maybe we can change that." Zorasha recoiled slightly, her confusion deepening. She had come here to crush human resistance, to instill fear, and instead, she found herself talking to the very thing she had been trained to destroy. There was no honor in this, no glory. She had never felt this disoriented in a mission before. But the captain wasn't done. He took a step closer, his expression unwavering. "If you're going to survive this, you're going to need to change your perspective. Humans aren't what you think. And this war, it's not what you think. Zarash's mind raced as she tried to make sense of the situation. Was it possible that this human, this soldier, could be right? Could there really be more to humanity than what she had been led to believe? Could she, the proud warrior of the Zyrex, be wrong? Zarash's mind churned with confusion. She had always known herself as a warrior, a conqueror, a symbol of her people's might and superiority. The Zyrex had never once questioned their right to dominate the universe. To them, all other species were either obstacles to overcome or resources to exploit. Yet here she was, bound by a human trap, facing a man who refused to treat her as a mere enemy. The man, the human captain, seemed to sense her internal struggle. His eyes softened further, though the steel in his voice remained firm. You keep saying you're here to conquer. But what's your plan after that? What happens when you've crushed all the resistance, when you've taken control? Will you stay on Earth and rule over the ashes? Will your people be satisfied then? Zarash's breath hitched, her pulse quickening. It was the first time anyone had ever questioned the end game of the Zyrex. What would they do after they had defeated humanity? Her species had always told her that domination was the goal, that power itself was the end. But the question lingered in her mind now, uncomfortably so. You don't understand. Zorashah snapped, trying to regain control of the conversation. I don't need to answer you. My orders are clear. The Zyrex will rule. It's what we do. But something about the man's calm, unwavering presence unsettled her. There was no arrogance, no fear in his demeanor, only resolve. He wasn't threatening her, nor was he begging for her mercy. He was simply asking questions that, for the first time, she didn't know how to answer. The silence between them grew thick, like a weight pressing down on her chest. The human's eyes never left hers, challenging her to admit, even for a second, that he might have a point. For the first time, Zorashah felt a sliver of doubt creep into her heart, and she hated it. She had never doubted her mission. She had always been certain, confident, even, but now, why do you care? Zorashah finally demanded, her voice a little less certain. Why should you care what happens to me or my people? We're your enemies. The captain sighed deeply, shaking his head. I'm not interested in what your people are. I'm interested in you. You're here, trapped, and I'm the one who could end your life. But I'm not going to, and I'm not going to do it because I think you're more than just an alien invader. I think you're more than a soldier following orders. Zarash's heart pounded in her chest. She had never felt this exposed, never been this vulnerable to anyone. She was supposed to be the one in control. She was the one meant to make her enemies feel fear, not the other way around. But here she was, a prisoner in the hands of a human, and it was her own certainty crumbling around her. For the first time in years, Zorashah found herself looking at her own reflection in the human's eyes, questioning everything she had ever believed. The familiar walls of her arrogance began to crumble, and the realization hit her like a shockwave. She wasn't just fighting for her people. She was fighting for a cause that she no longer fully understood. The captain continued, his voice steady but heavy with something she couldn't quite place. I think you're here because, deep down, you're looking for something. You might not realize it yet, but you don't want to destroy. You don't want to conquer. Maybe, just maybe, you're looking for a way to break free from what's been drilled into you your whole life. A different path, a different future. Zorashah recoiled at his words, but the idea lingered, like a shadow refusing to leave her. Could it be true? Was there another way? She had always been taught that the Zyrex were the apex of all life, that no species could challenge their might. But now, standing here in front of this human, those beliefs fell hollow. You think I can change? Zorashah scoffed, her tone defensive, but inside, she wasn't sure anymore. The captain didn't answer immediately. Instead, he just looked at her, as if seeing something she couldn't yet understand. I think you can choose, he said quietly. You just have to decide if you're willing to. Zorashah was silent, her mind torn between the pull of her mission and the new, unsettling questions the human had planted in her. Could she change? Could she even consider another path? The idea was absurd. But what if there was more to life than simply following orders? Zarash's mind was in turmoil. The captain's words, like an unwanted seed, had been planted deep within her, and now they began to take root, growing with every passing moment. The very notion that she might have a choice, that her life wasn't dictated by orders and duty alone, was almost unthinkable. She had been trained for this, trained to believe that the Zyrex were the rightful rulers of the universe. They were supreme, unquestioned. Humanity was nothing more than a stumbling, weak species waiting to be crushed. And yet, here she was, questioning everything. The human captain stood in front of her, watching, his silence loud in the tension between them. He didn't try to make her feel guilty, didn't pressure her into giving up her beliefs. He simply waited, as if he knew the truth would reveal itself in time. And somehow, the waiting made her feel more exposed, more vulnerable than if he had simply killed her. "You've been trained to believe one thing," the captain said, breaking the silence again. His voice was low, almost contemplative. "That's all you know. But that doesn't make it right. I've been trained, too, to defend my people, to fight for Earth's survival. But if all we do is fight without questioning why, then we'll destroy each other, just like we've done before. The reason we're still here is because some of us chose to change, to believe that there's something more than just violence." Zora Shaw felt her jaw tighten. This human was speaking about peace, about a different way of life. But how could he possibly understand what it was like to be part of a race like the Zyrex? They were not made for peace. They were made for war. Her people had known only one way to exist: dominate, conquer, annihilate. "You want peace," Zora Shaw spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "But peace is a lie. Your species has fought among itself for centuries. You are no better than the others. You just haven't found a way to destroy everything yet." The captain's expression remained unchanged, his eyes never leaving hers. "I don't want peace at any cost. But I know that true peace doesn't come through domination. It comes through understanding. And you're not here to destroy us, are you? If you were, you would have done it already. There's something in you that's different." Zora Shaw recoiled at his words, as if the human had reached into her mind and touched a place she had tried to bury deep inside. There was a truth to what he said. She could have killed them all already. Her people's technology, their strength, could have wiped Earth off the map in a single strike. But something had stopped her. Was it mercy? No, she refused to believe that. "I'm not some kind of peacekeeper," she said, her voice hardening again. "I'm a soldier. I follow orders." The captain shook his head, almost gently. "Soldiers follow orders, yes. But real strength comes from knowing when to question them." For a long moment, neither spoke. Zarash's mind raced, her heart pounding as she tried to make sense of this strange exchange. She had always believed that the Zyrex were destined to rule, that their superiority was absolute. But now, with each word from this human captain, the foundation of her beliefs was beginning to crack. Zora Shaw felt a deep unease settle in her chest. She wasn't sure whether it was fear or something else, something she had never felt before. Could this human be right? Could there be another way? Her thoughts were interrupted by a voice, a sharp, commanding tone. "Captain." Another soldier appeared, rushing up to them, a look of panic in his eyes. "The rest of the squad is ready. We need to leave now. The base is compromised. The Zyrex are close." The captain turned to face the new soldier, his expression hardening in an instant. Zarash's instincts kicked in, and she knew the time for questions was over. She had to act. The human was right. The Zyrex were coming. But so was she. She had her orders, and she couldn't ignore them. She could escape, fight, and win. Her loyalty was to her people, to her mission. But as she stood there, listening to the chaos of the approaching battle, another part of her, the part that had been so strangely stirred by the human's words, questioned whether this was all there was to her life. Was there something more than just following orders? The captain turned to her, his eyes unwavering. "We don't have much time. You're going to have to choose. Zora Shaw, right now. You can stay and fight, or you can leave with me and see what this world has to offer. What do you want?" Zarash's breath caught in her throat. Her mind screamed for her to follow her instincts, to escape, to fight. But there was a part of her, a small, fragile part, that wanted to hear what the captain was offering. Could she leave behind everything she had ever known? Could she choose a different path? For the first time in her life, she felt torn. The choices before her felt like two opposing forces, both fighting for control over her future.